Chair recognizes the honourable member for Kalani.
Not yet, not yet, not yet. It's amazing that the side opposite don't look as tense today since the chief tax collector arrived. Madam Speaker, before I get into my debate, I look at an article. And the Prime Minister said, Prime Minister claimed that the F&M, our accomplishments, was essentially nothing of worth. But I want to remind the Prime Minister of several things. When we came to office, we met with the executive of Bahama, who expressed a concern that they thought their product may be somewhat jeopardized because of the amount of smoke coming across that their guests were exposed to from the dump. And the same problem with the adjoining residents at the dump site, had to keep their windows closed, air conditioned, and they could not breathe properly. And Bahama said that if that was not fixed, their tourist product could be jeopardized and probably not grow as rapidly as they expect. Madam Speaker, we fixed it. Then Albany, we had a meeting with Albany, and Albany said their product was in some degree of jeopardy also in terms of expansion because of the leakage at Clifton, the leakage of the oil at Clifton, which stained or contaminated the hull of the yachts within Albany and adjoining area. And Madam Speaker, BPL used to go out regularly, I was informed almost every day, to clean the hull of these vessels. And Albany said to us that that's a matter that has to be resolved. We fixed it. We fixed it. Madam.
The Chair recognizes the honourable member for Carlisle and Ramkins, Salvador.
I want to, it's a nice Saturday. I'm going to allow you to, I'm not going to allow your character to stay in this debate. Right? And I say that in this sense. You know what caused the leakage to stop. And that was because we did what? Did what? No. Did what? You were there. I gave a contract. That's right. I gave a contract to the contractor. I don't call names in here. Who built after many studies as to the cause and effect of the leakage, which was a result of many, many years of leakage in the ground. And because of the what they call the vacuum effect of tidal rise and its low tide that sucked the oil from the ground. It was fixed by a contract issued by myself to a construction company that built, after many studies, built the bulkhead wall along the shore of Clifton, which was done under my watch. Right? And I can bring, no, you tell me otherwise. We'll bring the documents for you.
Thank you. That's not the case. Madam Speaker, I'm going to ask my colleague next to me to inform me when I have 5 minutes left, because I want to get into this lease on Howard Road, the lease for the Consumer Protection Building. I would insist that that be tabled because a lot of information can be garnered from that, and I can speak very freely with that. So, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I rise today. Madam Speaker, allow me, stop that clock. I rise today on behalf of the good people of Kalani to offer my contribution to the 2023-24 bills that make up the national budget. I will continue to work hard on their behalf. I also rise in opposition to a historic and disturbing strategy by this greedy PLP administration to manipulate the budget and the tax system to ensure a historic transfer of wealth from the people to the PLP elite. This is not a budget mostly for the Bahamian people. This budget is part of a grand strategy by the PLP to enrich themselves by hoarding the resources. Man, you can be
The chair
like
recognizes
popcorn all
the Honorable Member for Cat Island, Rum Cairns, and Salvador.
As long as you continue to attempt to smear this administration, you call no name, but you're saying to enrich themselves. Who's going to enrich themselves by this budget? We are not like you all. You are not like you all at all. And if you want me to speak to enrichment, I could.
We both can.
I could. No, you don't frighten me nothing. Because I have I am brave. You say? And let me point out something between you and I. You see? You're the doctor. I'm not. But I knew what to do to protect the Bahamian people against the virus.
I have a file on you too. Madam Speaker,
The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Cat Island, Rum Cairns, and Salvador.
Oneself. No, not old man. Your loose lips, right? It's designed to smear people's character. Right? I don't come in here to tear down no one. I come down here to debate ideas and suggestions. Right? No, you're not going to do it by suggesting that the budget is designed to enrich this government. Personally, point it out. Look in the budget and say how it is going to do so. Right?
Madam Speaker, this is why the Prime Minister, the tax collector in chief, is so defensive about the extra tax burden that he has put on the Bahamian people. This is why he is so defensive about his constant luxury travel and the over $60 million being paid to consultants. The PLP is governing by slogans and propaganda. This is why the second largest item in the budget of the Office of the Prime Minister is for public relations and spin. This budget has gone up by $400,000 in 1 year. As noted in the Nassau Guarding story on June 6, I quote, "The government has increased the budget of the communication unit in the Office of the Prime Minister from $1.9 million to $2.3 million in the 23-24 fiscal year. This allocation is found under the recurrent expenditure by spending unit section of the budget. And in that section, there are 11 line items under the Office of the Prime Minister." It went on, "The communications unit has the second largest allocation. The largest allocation, $21 million, is under general administration. The PLP prefers propaganda and public relations over substance. In terms of policy substance, there is no there. They weren't straight with the Bahamian people on their Bermuda trip. They still won't tell us how much the coronation extravaganza in London cost. And now, Madam Speaker, they wanted to provide us with a blazer. We refused, and I understand that they pulled it back. Can you imagine you wanted to buy the opposition and yourselves a blazer? I assume it was going to be yellow, but you wanted to put me in a yellow blazer? They won't tell us why they stopped the central bank, the new central bank. They won't tell us what is really going on with the cost of the new prison. Their plan and cost about a new hospital for New Providence aren't adding up. Why all this confusion and lack of transparency about these million-dollar capital projects. We wonder if the interest may be 14, 15%, and subsequently decrease if there were any mobilization fee by the government. Whenever it comes to state funds for major capital project works, the PLP can't get their stories right. They're constantly trying to deflect from their failures and grand mistakes. But Bahamians see through all of this propaganda and hide and seek. Madam Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic was difficult for the world. Countries sacrificed to save lives until vaccines, natural immunity, and treatments caused the virus to be less threatening. The natural reopening of the economies as the virus retreated resulted in increased economic activities around the world. The Bahamas has a tourism economy. The return of visitors filled our hotels, our harbors, ports, and marinas. What has made the increase in arrivals more significant is the remarkable strength and resilience of the American economy. The Economist magazine cover story on April 15, 2023, titled Riding High, described the strength of the U.S. economy. Madam Speaker, the growth we are experiencing in our economy is good news for the Bahamas. We don't let the PLP, but don't let the PLP public relations fool you. It is not because of them. They want to take all the credit for what is happening now. In yet another round of spin and propaganda, the Prime Minister said in his budget communication, and I quote, "I am convinced the government's fiscal policy, namely the reduction of VAT, coupled with other reductions in customs duties and excise taxes, contribute significantly to economic growth." He went on, other elements which contributed to growth included the digitalization of the government services, especially the granting of concessions and legislative reforms. And these measures have also facilitated the ease of conducting business in the country. First of all, it has gotten more difficult doing business in the Bahamas, especially for Bahamians. It has become especially difficult in terms of business licenses and getting compliance certificates. The end of the pandemic, the good work the F&M did in saving lives and preserving our economy, and the strength of the American economy are the major factors fueling our current growth. At the time of the election, the government's own data revealed that the economy was already turning the corner. The world was opening up, and resurgence was beginning after a difficult period. What the PLP is doing is the opposite of helping. Instead of trying to assist our people with policies that give a hand up while this growth occurs, the Davis administration has unleashed a crusade of tax and fee increases. This is accompanied by an overly aggressive tax collection and seizure policy, never before seen in the history of the Bahamas. And as soon as our people start to benefit from better times, after a once-in-a-100-year pandemic, a hostile PLP has set in motion policies to take from them what they worked so hard for. The Prime Minister, it appears, just wanted power. He never had any vision about the better future for the Bahamas or even Cat Island. He did very little to improve the lives of people of Cat Island, despite representing them for years, and despite previously serving as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Works. But the member for Long Island will deal with that. The Prime Minister is more comfortable with public relations over governance. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, crime is still a major issue despite all of this talk, spin, public relations, and propaganda. Will the government please inform the country of the latest unemployment numbers? The reason this is mostly empty, lackluster budget is because we have a Prime Minister who often does not even know what's going on in the Ministry of Finance. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister came here and said there would be no, the Prime Minister now, there would be no increase in taxes. However, when we read the budget, the Minister of Finance has a number of increase in taxes. So, Madam Speaker, there's obviously a disconnect between the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, under such circumstances, when the Minister of Finance is speaking differently from the Prime Minister, a competent, responsible Prime Minister would fire the Minister of Finance. Who's the Minister of Finance? Madam Speaker, as mentioned, the recovery that began at the end of our term is now quite robust. Lots of tourists have returned. Lots of revenue is coming in. The revenue estimate for 22-23 fiscal year is $2.84 billion. The revenue estimate for the 23-24 fiscal year is $3.32 billion. Prime Minister who came to office with no ideas and no plans finally found a calling as he saw all of this money coming into the Treasury. He couldn't help our people because this is not his main interest. He couldn't add to the progress that was occurring because this was not who he is. So he decided to enjoy the ride. The Prime Minister decided he would spend his term being the chief tax collector. His New Day administration set in motion a new set of taxes and fees to extract as much as possible, as fast as possible from the Bahamian people. They are also using New Day tax collectors to make sure they get every dollar they can, listen carefully, from the Bahamian people and the Bahamian businesses. This is going as far as seizures and garnishing accounts. And what they are using this money for, Madam Speaker, the hard-earned money of the Bahamian people, is being taken via taxes and spent lavishly by government traveling. The New Day administration has unleashed a tax and take policy. This includes tax increases, fee increases, and levy increases. And the heartless policy began from the beginning. No one saw it coming. They raised taxes on breadbasket foods. The items the poor and working people need to survive went up 10%. And Madam Speaker, 60% of the foods purchased by the poor and within the inner city are breadbasket items, 60%. And they have contributed to the running of major supermarkets. Madam Speaker, they didn't have to do this. This was their choice. They also put up taxes on medicines. These items went up 10%, and now individuals are deciding whether they take the medication or buy food. Some are choosing food over medication, and subsequently the disease entity is blown out of control, and they're admitted to hospital, either the progressive disease or the problems related to the disease. They did not have to do this. This was a choice. By not following through on the BPL hedge the FNM left in place to protect the Bahamian people is also like a tax. Their failure has led to sky-high electricity bills Bahamians and businesses are struggling to pay. Bahamians have called me complaining about their BPL bill. It is causing severe hardship. And when they call, I tell them that's what the PLP New Day is all about. But if you listen to the Prime Minister, you wouldn't know about any of this. In his budget communication, the Minister of Finance said there were no tax increase in this budget. As the opposition reviewed the documents, we found that was more sign of propaganda. The Prime Minister's promise not to inflict new taxes on the Bahamian people was clever lawyer talk. In his mind, he must have thought that he was technically keeping his promise by simply calling a tax by another name. There are new levies and fees. I guess he thinks the Bahamian people can't understand the fine print. Bahamians can see through the tricks of this New Day administration. The Bahamian people, Madam Speaker, are not fooled. They know that a tax by any other name is still a tax. The Prime Minister has now burdened the University of the Bahamas with VAT that will have to be passed on to our young people. Madam Speaker, this will have a negative impact on our tertiary education. If the university purchases personal items, 20 million of aids, computer aids, they now have to pay tax with the new bills that are brought here. $2 million would be paid by the university, but the budget of the university did not go up, which means that they would have to find this additional money from somewhere else. He has now burdened our ports with new and increased taxes that will have to be passed on directly or indirectly to all of us. He has now provided the legislation for the imposition of a new health and wellness levy and an immigration levy. He now has a new tourism environmental levy on top of increased passenger taxes. Then, this Prime Minister has announced the increase in NIB contributions scheduled for 24. Prime Minister, I've sat in our seat. Sometimes one has to make difficult decisions. Your decision is wrong. I'm not saying now or later. It's wrong. That is more of the people's money coming out of their income. This is what the Brave New Day is all about: increased taxes and fees to fund the PLP good life of luxury travel, consultants, contracts, and more. I have been told, Madam Speaker, that there has been an increase in PLPs living in gated community. I have been told, I've seen it myself, I've been told there's been an increase in PLPs buying brand new cars. Don't cause me on you today. I have been told by various sources that PLPs are no longer going on vacation in Miami, they're now going to Europe. These were the same people who could not do that previously. Madam Speaker, now they have all kinds of money. The New Day administration is delivering the best life for certain PLPs using taxpayers' money. Madam Speaker, Bahamians are most disturbed by the Prime Minister's announcement regarding further hostile actions to come by the New Day tax collectors. These are the people who are seizing people's businesses. I want you to listen carefully. Properties and accounts because of owed taxes. I think that everyone should pay what is legally owed to the state. However, this should be done with fairness, with decency, due process, and most of all, with compassion. Stop that clock.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Kell Island, Rum Kingston, Salvador.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker. I'm heartened to hear that the member for Kalani accepts that people should pay their taxes, because all along, the chief tax collector what I was hearing is that the people shouldn't pay their tax, right? They shouldn't pay their tax. That's what I was hearing. And so I'm happy that he's clearing that up. Because no, you all over the place, man. You all over the place. No, you want popcorn. Right. You know, so Madam Speaker, if people owe their taxes, should we not collect it?
Yes.
Well, I will collect the taxes that are owed. And it's fair that they do pay their taxes.
Correct.
And so if you're suggesting that I shouldn't be the chief tax collector as the Minister of Finance, should I appoint someone else? You want to be it for me? You did a poor job.
Prime Minister gave this statement in his budget communication that should scare all Bahamians. I quote, he said, "We will establish a large taxpayer unit to improve compliance and revenue collection from the 100 or so businesses that account for 1.7 billion in taxes." He went on, "We will implement a national revenue targeting center that uses technology to identify anomalies in revenue reporting among taxpayers, which will lead to more efficient audits. And we will improve revenue collection in the Family Islands by increasing staffing levels in revenue collection agencies in the Family Islands." Let me translate this for the country in simple language. What the Prime Minister said, the Prime Minister is creating a tax collecting police force. They're coming after.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Ken Island, Rumkins, and Salvador.
You know, Madam Speaker, I very often reminded the member opposite, Kalani, when he sat where I'm sitting now, that when you don't know, that's not synonymous to being dumb, you know. It's when you know you don't know and act like you know. That's dumbness. If we listen carefully, the large taxpayer unit is not designed, it was designed to facilitate the 100 top businesses in the country. And this is something that they were urging so as not to be in the queue. Right, that will have certain arrangements to ensure that we could collect expeditiously what is efficient collection of taxes to which they've all signed on to. Right, that's management, and that is designed so that they won't get clogged up with the other businesses that come along. This is the engine that drives the revenue, 1.7 billion. That's what it is. And when we talk about setting up provisions, is the member suggesting that we should not put in place initiatives to ensure that we are fair, that we are transparent in the collection of our taxes, and that we expect from those who pay taxes to also be fair and transparent to the government? When we talk about setting up a digital platform for the purposes, it's very easy. Right? If you import $300,000 worth of goods during the course of the year, and you put in your business license, you say your turnover is just $100,000. Should we not be able to ask you about that? Should we not be able to track that or trace it? Isn't that, so? Ask. See, get to understand. See, please remember, right? Dumbness. Sorry, not knowing is not synonymous to dumbness.
I am embarrassed that the Prime Minister can use such words. I am using his own quote. Yesterday, I specifically asked one of his ministers when he spoke about the Wildlife Agency. The Wildlife Agency would have the powers of policemen, similar to the agency that you're establishing. They're similar powers. Madam Speaker, they're coming after Bahamian agencies and businesses in New Providence, Grand Bahama, and the Family Islands with an aggressiveness in tax collection never seen in our country. The Prime Minister, as Minister of Finance and Chief Tax Collector, will be their boss. He is in charge of them, and Bahamians should remember this. The Prime Minister is giving the new day tax collectors more power than any Prime Minister has in the history of our country. If you owe money, then they're coming after you. If you owe a little bit, they're coming after you. I fear for our people. I have asked this Prime Minister time and time again to have mercy, but he never does. The new tax collectors are supposed to be posting a list of things they have seized from the people. That means the New Day policy will destroy you first. They will destroy you first, and then embarrass you when you have nothing left. That is what the brave New Day is all about. Madam Speaker, they have not used taxpayers' money as they were entrusted to. The PLP is giving its consultants remarkable sums of money. In a story titled Government Budgets, $64 million for consultants on June the 5th, the Nassau Guardian took a look at the New Day giveaway of the people's money. It said the government has allocated $64.3 million for consultancy service in the upcoming budget. In the current budget, the government originally allocated $65.1 million for consultancy services, but according to the 23-24 budget tabled in Parliament last week, that figure ballooned to $76.2. They are spending $60 to $70 million per year on consultants. This means by the end of their term, the New Day administration is on pace to give consultants more than $250 million of the people's money. They also...
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Freetown.
Us by admitting how much of this consultancy relates to consultants they hired to do just that. My information is it's in the range of $20 million per year that we are paying for consultants that he put in place and is bragging about.
Thank you, honourable member.
Madam Speaker, the Bahamian people lost out on modern medical care because the PLP made a terrible decision. Now we are hearing dream talk about a new hospital that's supposed to cost nearly $300 million. Many were left in shock reading a story in the Tribune in which the Minister of Health was interviewed about this proposed new hospital. The details of where they are with this idea are alarming. The story was on June 5th of this year, titled Government Ready to Guarantee Nassau's $290 Million Hospital. In it, the Minister of Health confirms they have not yet secured funding for the hospital. Instead, he says they are getting some good hits from financing sources. He then goes on to say that the proposed site at Papawal Track has as part of land owned by a company owned by Sir Franklin Wilson. The story gets even more interesting and curious. They have not yet bought the land from the company. They have not yet even agreed on a price. This is what the Minister of Health told the newspaper. I quote, "We had a negotiation ongoing with him." Dr. Dowell said of talks with the Arawak Homes chair. "He has agreed in principle that he would allow us to continue the project. Our job is to now finalize the equity, a payment or a land swap. We negotiated that this was the best way to go. He has agreed in principle and conceded to allow the project to go forward, pending us giving him compensation," end quote. We have no idea how much of the Bahamian people's money or land the PLP intends to negotiate away to this company. But there's even more to the story, Madam Speaker. The Tribune noted the new hospital's total projected cost, $289.39 million, is revealed for the first time in documents accompanying the 23-24 budget. Some $2 and $8 million of that sum will be spent on preparatory works during the 23-24 and 24-25 fiscal years, respectively, with construction projected to ramp up in 25-26 with an $160 million budget. So that means that you are not getting a hospital in 23 or 24 or even early 25. If this harebrained scheme ever starts, it won't be until the 25-26 fiscal year, which would be into the election period. Moreover, when the FNM was in office under the Right Honorable Prime Minister Hubert Ingram, and I at that time, Madam Speaker, was Minister of Health, we had done the project in evaluating the cost of a new hospital. A new hospital at that time, in 2009, was $600 million. Today, it's projected that such facility is $1.2 billion. The $300 million the PLP is suggesting is grossly underestimated. Madam Speaker, let's contrast the two parties. We had the money and were ready to build the new wing on site of the existing PMH. This saves tens of millions of dollars because lots of infrastructure is already there. The FNM had already built a new critical care wing. We were ready to build another one in the ongoing transformation of the PMH. On the other hand, the PLP sent back the money to build the new wing of the hospital, and nearly 2 years into their term, they have no financing, don't own any land they are looking at, haven't agreed to a price for the land, and they are still trying to finalize plans for the hospital. And sadly, Bahamian people are suffering because of the bad decision of this new administration. The construction of new wing, the FNM had the money for, would have employed hundreds of Bahamians. It would have improved health care for all our people once finished. With all these details yet to be determined by the PLP scheme nearly 2 years into their term, it is unlikely that the Davis administration will build any hospital in New Providence. Remember, this is the same PLP that said the Village Road improvement would be finished last December. It still isn't 100% complete. This is the same PLP that can't patch the potholes in New Providence. If they can't finish, Madam Speaker, a simple road project and can't patch potholes, do you really think they can complete a hospital? Madam Speaker, the PLP decision to cancel the new central bank is disgraceful. This was a project that had its origins in the last Christie administration. The central bank had a design competition. A creative and beautiful sand dollar design is chosen. It would have been the standout building in downtown Nassau if it were erected. The central bank staff would have had modern, comfortable facilities in which to work. And the central bank had its own money. The building was no burden to the government. The construction would have created hundreds of well-paying jobs, yet the PLP canceled it. Bahamians still don't know why. The Bahamian people still don't have a good reason. The Minister of Economic Affairs gave an incoherent, rambling answer to the media. What he said made no sense. Madam Speaker, many also wonder what has happened to the demolition process downtown. The city center is littered with derelict buildings. We demolished the old post office and cabinet office. Many more derelict private and public buildings need to go to make downtown more attractive. The port development have put $300 million into their facility. The government should follow the law and due process and have these derelict buildings demolished. Yet little is happening. The PLP must apply more focus on downtown, not just talk. Millions more cruise passengers are coming to the Bahamas in the coming years thanks to the port development brought about under the FNM administration. The government of the Bahamas must do more faster to make downtown more attractive. When the Prime Minister was just a member of Parliament on campaign trail and lead up to 2012 general election, he and his supporters thought it wise to put up billboards detailing murder statistics in public places where tourists and Bahamians could see. He would do almost anything for power. He got actual power in 2021. The people elected his administration. In their first year in office, the New Day administration had one of the highest murder totals in our history. Again this year, there were lots of shootings. Again this year, there have been lots of murders, more than 50. There have been many robberies, break-ins, and sexual assaults. The Prime Minister is lost on crime. He proved that most spectacularly when he hired Rodney Munker as the crime consultant. The Prime Minister seems finally tired of pretending as if he knows what to do. In his contribution to the budget debate, he said what we all know of his failure of crime. Outlining the efforts they have tried, he said, and I quote, "None have yet produced the downturn we would like to see." Those were the words of a man who knows that he had failed. Those were the words of a man who knows he does not know about crime. And the Bahamian people deserve better. Too many Bahamians are grieving loved ones lost to violent crime. Too many Bahamian businesses have faced gunmen who have come to rob them or what they worked for. Our hospital in New Providence at times are overwhelmed with shooting and stabbing victims. I support law-abiding citizens who have a need to get a handgun license. I think this process should be more transparent. There should be reasonable publicly available criteria setting out eligibility. There should also be training for these individuals to ensure they know how to use and care for their firearms. But key among the eligibility criteria should be honesty and good character. People with criminal backgrounds should not get handgun licenses. And I understand that a significant number of handgun licenses have been issued during this New Day administration's term. I am particularly concerned for the safety of our police officers and citizens based on who I have heard received some of these licenses. How many handgun licenses have been given out during the PLP term? Is it true that handgun licenses have been given to people with criminal convictions? Have individuals convicted of possession of dangerous drugs with intent to supply been granted handgun licenses? Let me ask that again in plain language. Have convicted drug dealers been given handgun licenses? Earlier this year, I raised the issue of the PLP administration issuing handgun licenses to convicted criminals. Not just one convicted criminal, but a good number. In the interest of the safety of the Bahamian people and our law enforcement officers, I am once again asking this PLP administration to provide an unedited list of all individuals who have been issued with firearm licenses since they came to office. All our police officers and citizens need to know that they are safe, especially from convicted criminals who have now been issued firearms. The PLP is making our crime problem worse by its slack and irresponsible handgun policy. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister's words and budget communication sum up who he is: all talk, few plans, and endless spin and propaganda. There is consensus all around the Bahamas that Freeport is not working. Its tourist arrivals had collapsed from where they were decades ago. Change is needed in Grand Bahama. All Bahamians know that, which is why the FNM was developing plans for a new international airport in Freeport. What we expect from our Prime Minister is a plan as to the way forward. All we got from the head of government in his budget communication was a detailing of the problem and a vague set of words. He said, I quote, "We believe the time has come for decisive action. In due course, we will make a separate, detailed announcement." What is that decisive action? Does he know, or were they just empty words? We know he likes to blame his speechwriters for what they put in his remarks. The Prime Minister who gets so much pleasure jetting around the world and grinning up with the rich and no plans on how to get Freeport out of difficulty it faces. The PLP promised big plan for Grand Bahama in its manifesto, the blueprint for change. They said they would, and I quote, develop a master plan in consultation with stakeholders for the future development of the island. And instead of presenting his big idea for the future of the island and city of Freeport, all he now have from him is a vague promise that of decisive action is coming. Madam Speaker, investors are watching and listening. The people gave the PLP legislative power. The PLP cabinet is the executive, and they have the power to make sweeping changes in Grand Bahama. Madam Speaker, they are good at announcements, but very poor at governance. And most of what they have announced will never come through. Is that clock right? That's right? No. I went too fast. I missed it. Sadly, Madam Speaker, the purpose of Madam Speaker, they are good at announcements, but very poor at governance. Most of what they have announced will never come true. And sadly, this is a lackluster, empty budget, lacking in hope and vision for a better Bahamas. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister, during his budget communication, initially tried to insinuate that my government had issued credit cards to our spouses. I'm happy that the Minister with responsibility for finance had corrected that, because under no circumstances had our spouses been issued credit cards. Not even the Prime Minister, myself, had credit card. And credit card was not issued to the Prime Minister until I was placed in an embarrassing situation while traveling on government business. And that particular European country did not take, that particular European company did not take swipe cards. In fact, they only took PIN cards, and the swipe was not accepted. And can you imagine, while there, I had to request or ask a staff member to pay government bills, after which they were reimbursed. It was not until then that I, as Prime Minister, was issued a card to do government work. Previous to that, it was always done on my card. Madam Speaker, I say this because had the member for East Grand Bahama not responded and clarified that, the impression was that the Prime Minister was throwing it out, and had the FNM not responded, the people would believe that such a policy existed, and what would have happened, the PLP would have probably attempted to give its spouses credit card, but we responded. And Madam Speaker, we are being blamed for spending monies, especially by the member for Carmichael. The member for Carmichael, on numerous occasions, with respect to the embassy in Brussels, had accused us of utilizing funds indiscriminately. I want to say categorically, Madam Speaker, that the policies and the protocols that were put in place were followed. All supplies, equipment, furnishings were approved by the Permanent Secretary and the Ministry of Finance. All such furnishings, down to the last item, is still present in the facility in Brussels. It is owned by the Bahamian people. Now, Madam Speaker, now what is happening, and I would hope that the Prime Minister jump up on his feet now. Now what is happening, the Ministry of Finance is so concerned with the overly spending of members and of members of this particular government, that the Ministry of Finance is presently in consultation with a particular bank to introduce an app that would allow them to see and monitor the government spending because it is out of control. The Prime Minister knows it is out of control. And hopefully they will have such an app available because, I do not want to call names, because there are individuals in the government who are abusing the system, that Ministry of Finance is so concerned that this particular app being discussed to be established by one of the major banks in this country to monitor the Bahamian spending. Madam Speaker, with respect to Howard Road, I would hope that the government would table the lease in this parliament so that that can be seen. That is important because once we see the cost that the property is being leased for, then we would be able to put all the various pieces together. Madam Speaker, I would hope that the Public Accounts Committee would ask for this lease, and I would hope that the Attorney General does not try to stop it. And in that event, Madam Speaker, I would hope that you would, as this falls under your domain.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Golden Gates.
I would ask if the member for Kalani would identify which lease he has in question. Okay, Madam Speaker. Every lease in the Ministry of Public Service is vetted by the AG, the Cabinet Committee, as well as approved by the Accountant General. This particular lease that my good friend from Kalani speaks of is a lease that was engaged and went through all the proper channels, protocols, and no procedures were out of line. This lease took months. It got all of the necessary approvals. On top of that, this lease represents a consolidation of the department, and there is a savings that is realized as a result of this lease. Additionally, Madam Speaker, I take exception because I don't approve leases. I don't work on the leases. This goes through a process, and the employees within the accommodations unit, the good public servants in the accommodations unit at the Ministry of Public Service, they are meticulous in ensuring that we follow to the letter, that we adhere to policies and procedures. I am guided by policies. The staff at the Ministry of Public Service is guided by policies, and we adhere to those policies. Indeed. So the lease that is in question is a lease that has provided a savings to the government, because as we are doing, we're consolidating. We rent on a square foot basis, and this lease is well within the square footage that is in policy.
Thank you, honourable member.
Madam Speaker, I understand policies and procedures. I understand that. But I still would like the member to table that lease so that we can see it. Madam Speaker, the member speak of policies. In terms of spending, the policy is, especially for overseas facility, the PS and the Ministry of Finance would, especially policy, no, I'm talking about policies. Policies. I'm talking about policies. Policies, PSs, you, hold on. You gave the policy for the lease. All I am only pointing out to you where policies are broken and not followed. Policies for certain expenditure goes to PS and Ministry of Finance. There are records repeatedly where the policies are being broken and not being followed, and that is why a particular app is being produced so as to follow the money trail. All I'm asking, Minister, all I'm asking is that the lease be tabled In the absence of being tabled,
Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Golden Gates.
Kalani, which lease are we speaking about? So what are you talking about overseas? I spoke to the policy. Cabinet Committee, AG's office, Accountant General, all approvals were received. Which lease are we speaking about? I responded to the lease.
Honourable members, in terms of the Harold Road site, that is now before the Public Accounts Committee, so that is being investigated. It's under investigation. So I don't think we should be discussing that on open forum at this time.
Thank you very much, Madam. I'm happy that that's at the Public Accounts Committee, which means that the lease will be seen. In the absence of it, we will ask through the Freedom of Information Act, because your department will be one of the first to be approved and determined and selected by the Public Accounts, by the Financial Information Unit. Madam Speaker.
Tuesday morning.
It's Tuesday morning.
That we expecting them to come Tuesday morning.
Madam Speaker, I look forward to the lease, as there are a lot of questions that can be answered, and Kalani rests its case.
Thank you, Honourable Member.